Hi guys, welcome to my channel. My name is OJ, and if you're seeing this for the first time, welcome to my channel. And please do not forget to subscribe and give my videos a thumbs up. This is a channel where I drop sewing tutorials and vlogs. And on today's episode, I want to teach you guys how to make a smoky Ankara dress. So if this is something you're interested in, let's get right into the video. So guys, for the purpose of this tutorial, I'm going to be making use of 3 yards of Ankara fabric. I have 6 yards right here in this video. I'm going to be cutting out 3 yards out of it, and this is my smoky thread. This smoky thread is elastic and you can get it in your local store. So I'm going to go ahead to cut out 3 yards out of this fabric. So after cutting out my 3 yards of fabric, I folded it into 2. The next thing for you is to determine the widest part of your measurement, which is probably going to be your hip. So for this dress, I'm making a 40 inches hip smoky dress. So what I'm going to do is multiply my 40 inches by 2.5. So when you multiply 40 inches by 2.5, I have my 100 inches. So if you have a 38 or 36 inches hip, you're going to multiply by 2.5. That is how you determine the length of your fabric. So right now, I want to try to cut out the excess that I might have on this fabric. So what I went ahead to do is, at the upper part, which is going to be my bust line, the bust of this dress is 36. So I multiplied 36 by 2.5, which is 90 inches. And remember, my fabric is on fold. So 90 divided by 2 is 45. So I'm going to measure 45 from the folded part of my fabric. Then I marked it out. Then at my hip line, I measured the same thing, which is 40 times 2.5, which is 100. Then I divided 100 into 2 because my fabric is on fold. That is 50 inches. So I marked it out, then connected it to the length of the dress. I want to make use of the whole length of this gown. So I connected from my bust to my hip, then down to the hem line. Then I cut it out. I didn't know my camera wasn't recording while I was cutting, so that is what I'm trying to explain here. So I just connected from the bust to the hip. Then I just removed 2 inches inward, just like we always do for our pencil gown. Then I just connected them together and I cut it out. So at the upper part, which is the bust line, the first thing I'm going to do is to hem it down with a very tiny inch. So you're going to see how I'm going to do it right now. So moving on, while sewing a smoky dress, guys, I will advise you get another bobbin case for your smoky dresses. Smoky thread tends to make your bobbin case act funny, so it is better you have a separate bobbin case for your smoky thread. To weave your smoky thread on your bobbin, you have to do that manually, which means with your hands, because you don't want your smoky thread to stretch unnecessarily, because it won't make sense on your fabric once it has stretched out. So you have to use your hands to reel it manually. So I'll advise you get a bobbin, 3 to 4 bobbins, and reel them prior to sewing, so that you can just keep picking them, then you keep using them. So you can have like up to 3 or 4. So that is what I'm doing right there. You have to do them with your hands. So back to my fabric. My fabric is ready for stitching right now. So you have to determine your smoky spacing. You have to determine your stitches spacing. So for the purpose of this dress, the first stitch I made was 1/2 inch from my previous hemming, because I want it to be a bit close to the hem at the upper part of my gown. But from that first stitch, my next stitch was 1 inch away from the first stitch. So I kept on sewing 1 inch spacing. I gave it 1 inch spacing all around, all through. But this has to depend on your own preference. You can make it 1/2 inch, and you can make it 1.5. But I think 1.5 is like the highest you can go, because 2 inches will be too much and to start looking funny. But 1 inch is very, very ideal. So that is what I'm doing there. I kept on sewing 1 inch straight line for this smoky thread. This process is a bit tiring, guys. You can stitch and take a break in between. So that is what I'm doing right there. So for the lower part of this gown, I left the fabric to be about 7 to 8 inches, because I want that ruffles at the end part of the dress. So I left 8 inches, then I hemmed the lower part by 1 inch. So I have about 6 to 7 inches left. So that is going to serve as the ruffles. It's going to be like a gathered ruffles at the lower part of the gown. So that is how you go about that part. So the next thing I'm going to do is to stitch my fabric at the sides. So after I was done stitching, this is what I have, and this is me arranging my fabric very well, so that I can calculate what I'm going to stitch at both ends correctly. So I went ahead to fold it well, and I measured after stitching. I measured what I have after stitching. It happened to be 16 inches. Initially, the hip of this dress is supposed to be 40, and since it is on fold, that's 20. But I have 16, so it's going to stretch out to meet up with the original hip. So that is what I'm going to do. That means it's reduced by 4 inches, because I have 16 inches now. So that is exactly what I'm going to do at the bust part. So for my bust, I also have 16 on the fabric. So my bust is 36. 36 divided by 2 is 18. Then I'm going to minus 4. That means I'm going to have 14. And since I have 16 on my fabric, it totally means I'm going to be taking 2 inches at both ends. Please, if you don't understand this, go over this video again so that you can understand what I just explained. So what I'm doing right here is taking out 2 inches at both ends. That means I have 14 at the upper part. So on the waist, I have 28 inches. 28 divided by 2 gives me 14. And I'm going to reduce it by 4 inches, which is 10. So I'm going to be taking out 3 inches at the waist because the whole fabric is 16. So I'm connecting from my bust to my waist, then to my hip. Then at the lower part, I took out 1 inches at both ends. Then I just shaped out my marked ends with my chalk. Then I went ahead to stitch it down. Remember, when I'm stitching, I'm not going to be making use of my Smokey thread. I'm going to be making use of the real thread right now. So I will stitch them down at both ends. After I was done stitching it down at both ends, the next thing I'm going to do is to cut out the excesses that I might have just along my seam so that my dress will not be too bulgy at the sides. So after I was done with that, the next thing I'm going to do is to try to cut out my armhole. Remember, this dress has a strap, so I'm going to be fixing a strap that is going to be taping the armhole at the same time. So I have my strap to be 6 inches. Then I'm going to measure down to my chest line, which is going to be 8. That's 2 inches from the top of the dress. So after I marked my 2 inches point, then I came in by 2 inches at the upper and lower part, 2 inches as the width and 2 inches as the depth. Then I connected both of them together and cut out my armhole. After I was done with my armhole, the next thing is to work on my strap. So for this strap, I cut out about 20 inches long strap, which means I have 6 inches as my strap. So both front and back is going to make it 12, and the armhole measurement, because I'm going to be taping it down together, is about 4 inches at the front and 4 inches at the back. So 12 plus 4 plus 4 will give me 20. So I have 20 inches long strap, and the width is about 2 inches. So I'm going to be folding half at the end, then fold it to give me a 1 inch tape. So the part which is going to be my strap, after I've gotten my midpoint, I'm going to be stitching down 6 inches from the midpoint. That will give me 12. That means I will be left with 4 inches opening at both ends of my strap. Let me take that again. From the midpoint of my strap, I'm going to be measuring 6 inches at both ends from the midpoint. And I'm going to be stitching down those 6 inches at both ends, which is going to be 12. Then I'll be left with 4 inches opening at both ends of my strap. Please, if you do not understand what I'm saying, just look at the video and follow my steps. After I was done stitching down the 2 straps, the next thing I'm going to do is try to fit my armhole curve into the openings I have at both ends. So I'm going to open the opening, then put my armhole in between it, because I'm going to be using it to tape it down at both ends. So I'm trying to pin it down here. Then I'm going to do the same for the back of the armhole. Then I'll stitch it down. Just watch closely at what I'm doing. You definitely get it right. After I was done taping it down, my strap is sitting pretty. So the next thing I'm going to do right now is to close up this small opening I have at the side. Then I'm going to do the same for the second strap. So after I was done with the second strap, this is what I have. My gown is sitting so good. If you've watched up to this point, thank you very much for stopping by, and do not forget to subscribe, like, comment and share. See you up in my next